Hello and welcome to Claw's YouTube channel. I'm your host, General Dushyant Singh, once again bringing to you the eminent speakers of Indian Army who would be acquainting you with the defense preparedness of our army. In this series, we have with us General Walia, Engineer in Chief. Welcome to the podcast, General Walia.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so today, as you all know, he's the engineer in chief. And before I actually go into the discussion proper, I would like to inform our audience that why is he mentioned as engineer in chief? It is because of his inter-services, cross-services role. That means he's responsible for engineering support to both, to all three, Army, Air Force, and the Navy, and the civil as well. So he's got a very vast role, and that is why he's referred to as engineer in chief. Normally, the other heads of arms are referred to as director generals, but General Walia, or for that matter, anyone who is in the engineers, his highest post is engineer in chief. So, with this brief background, let me dive into today's discussions. As you all know, engineers are the mainstay of defense operations. For example, they provide us mobility, they impede the mobility of the enemy, they give us infrastructure support, they give us infrastructure support both in the peace as well as in the operational areas. In the peace, the services are referred to by the military engineering service, and in the operational area, they are referred to as by op works given by the combat engineers. Similarly, they also carry out the enormous task of survey of India, in the sense that the entire border areas are surveyed by military survey organization, again under the aegis of the engineer in chief. So you can see the kind of variety of roles he has. But I will not be telling you everything. I will leave that to our guest today. So, Jan Walia, first of all, kindly give us the overall role of your entire gamut of work, and how do you actually carry out your functioning in a broad overview for our audience.
Thank you, General Dushyant, for introducing the topic. Um, it will be my pleasure to throw some light on the prestigious Corps of Engineers. The Corps has a rich legacy of service, innovation, and excellence in all spheres of life. To just go back into the origins of the Corps of Engineers, two companies of pioneers were raised on 30th of September 1780
Okay,
under the Madras Presidency.
right.
And thereafter, the balance two presidencies, that is the Bengal and the Bombay, also raised the pioneers and miners.
Okay,
All these three were merged together on 18th November 1932 to form the present Corps of Engineers. So we can proudly say that we are the oldest and the most versatile arms. We are a multifaceted force which plays critical role in both operations and non-operation domains.
I would like to interject here just to emphasize the point which the engineer in chief was trying to bring out. First of all, when he says he's the oldest arm, actually it also means it is the oldest fighting arm.
Thank you very much, sir, again for clarifying the issue. But just before I bring out the primary responsibilities, I would just also like to mention two nuggets of our history. You see, till 1911, the entire role of Corps of Signals was also performed by the Corps of Engineers.
Wonderful. That's a news to me also.
And in fact, when the Air Force was being raised,
Yeah,
the first 10 troops which were provided were from engineers.
right.
And so we become the mother arm of the Indian Air Force also.
Hmm.
And that time they were called as Hawaii Sipahi.
Oh, lovely.
So now coming to the roles and charter of the Corps of Engineers, specifically combat engineering support which we provide to the field formations, which as you rightly brought out, primarily is related to mobility, counter mobility, and making sure that the troops sustain during the period of operations in the
Right.
field. The second primary role which happens both during the peacetime and the no war, no peace scenarios also is the infrastructure development by the MES and the border roads and infrastructure of all types. I'm sure we will be covering that in a later time frame also.
Okay.
And the third, another important role, uh, which is an unwritten role for us, is the disaster management and humanitarian assistance.
Right.
By virtue of our training and our equipment, we become always the first responder to any situation. Presently, also, as of today, in Telangana, the tunnel collapse. My engineer regiment party is already there, trying to rescue 8 miners which are stuck inside the tunnel.
Oh. So let's move on to the next question, which is basically about the combat engineers. You know, that's your, how should I say, that's your bread and butter. That's the primary one task. So tell us something about your combat engineers, how they key into your overall functioning. But before that, I ask you to cover the combat engineers part. Let me also inform our audience that General Walia is not merely a soldier. He's also an intellectual. Right from his service, he got a silver medal in the Indian Military Academy. He has been instructor in CDM Secunderabad, which is College of Defence Management. He was instructor in National Defence College. He has been the chief engineer of command. So this man actually has so much of experience to share. Half an hour will be very, very less. So over to you about the combat engineers.
Thank you, sir. Combat engineers become the bedrock of any military operations which are undertaken by anywhere in the world. In fact, engineering has always been a integral part of war fighting and soldiering. If we look at our epic Ramayana, uh, the entire Sena of Lord Ram was stuck at the southern shore because they were not able to cross over to Sri Lanka.
Yes.
Now, then came to the rescue of Lord Ram
So
were
that,
two
that
engineers, Neil and Null.
that place is known as Rameshwaram, if I'm
Yes,
not
sir,
wrong.
Rameshwaram. So, we can call them as our forefathers of combat engineers,
Lovely.
Null and Neil, and they were given this task of making a bridge across the sea, across the ocean to reach Lanka. So that is our first charter, which is the mobility part.
It is said that, they threw stones which were floating. Can they be equated to the pontoon bridges, of today, which
Look,
actually are thrown like this into the water and they actually float, and then you put the decks and go across any water obstacle.
absolutely, sir. I mean, look like we had our predecessors much advanced in technology.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
But folklore apart, sir. So the first part, the combat engineers are embedded with the field formations, and they provide them direct combat engineering support. Uh, in the context of modern warfare, the combat engineering has evolved considerably. And we look at the recent conflicts which are taking place, for example, in Russia-Ukraine war, the combat engineer role has proved very significant in conduct of operations.
Okay.
In fact, Ukraine has created multiple levels of obstacles by destroying bridges and inundating the entire land mass, which impeded the movement of Russian forces.
Yeah. Initial offensive got actually stalled because of this.
Yes, sir, absolutely, sir. So the three domains in which the combat engineers can divide their role and charter are primarily the mobility part, the counter mobility, and the survivability.
Okay.
As far as mobility is concerned, since the enemy has laid a large number of obstacles, it is the primary task of the engineers to ensure that our forces reach their designated objectives.
Okay.
This would include crossing over the rivers, making bridges, crossing over the minefields, making multiple obstacle clearance paths, removing IEDs in the deserts, since vehicles and equipment cannot cross over the sandy terrain, making tracks using
Absolutely.
improvised materials. So this is a very, very important, because unless you reach the objective, you cannot fight that war.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
second is the reverse of this mobility, which is the counter mobility. So to
Correct.
deny certain areas where we do not want the enemy to, have a free run.
Right.
Therefore, we lay equal number of obstacles, which will include minefields, which will include inundation of the areas, which will include improvised obstacles, anti-tank obstacles like tetrahedrons, etc. And third, which is also very important role, is the survivability.
Okay.
How do the troops survive for a prolonged period in those operational conditions? So this will include from shelter constructions, from field fortifications, from supply of water and other essentials, so that there is a sustainability factor and the troops are able to conduct their operations without any hindrance.
Since we are at survivability, there is one important factor of survivability as far as the engineers are concerned, and that is fighting dirty or fighting in a CBRN environment. Could you just throw some light as to how much of effort which the engineers put into this kind of a operation? Because we have to be prepared, as you know, our region is highly nuclearized. Both our adversaries are actually nuclear powers. So your efforts towards that direction.
So the Corps of Engineers is the mother arm for all issues related to the CBRN.
That's right.
To bring to perspective, the two nuclear blasts which India conducted, the first one in 1974 and the second one 24 years later in 1998,
Okay.
were all conducted in arrangements which were made by the combat engineers.
That's fine.
In fact, the second blast, so much of deception measures were laid by the engineers that even the most sophisticated satellites could not pick up the
Okay.
preparatory work which was undergoing in those areas.
That's to the credit of the nation as well as engineers.
Absolutely, sir. And as far as fighting dirty is concerned, sir, engineers have been mandated the task of carrying out reconnaissance of the areas in which our troops, designated troops, are supposed to fight dirty.
Okay.
So we have the equipment, we have the mandate to carry out recce, to earmark lanes through which troops will be
Okay.
fighting dirty. Also, we have the capability of decontamination of our equipment, of our personnel, and we have been trained for all this purpose. Recently, the G20 summit was conducted, and where our CBRN
Vehicles.
QRTs were also deployed.
Absolutely.
And presently also to deal with any kind of a chemical calamity, our QRT for CBRN is deployed in the Kumbh Mela also in Prayagraj also, sir.
So that's just for the information of the public that our engineers are not only into the military, they are also into the civil domain to ensure that our people are safe and secure from this menace which is there in the horizon, and the country faces a real threat as far as that is concerned. Coming down to the our next question or next big issue, and that is, I suppose it is larger than even the combat engineer, and that's the military engineering service, which provides infrastructural support, which provides maintenance support to our troops and our other affiliated personnel of the Indian Armed Forces. I'm now qualifying it with not only Army but Indian Armed Forces. So some light you could throw on the military engineer services.
General Dushyant, military engineering service is the second important pillar of the Corps of Engineers. Its origin could be dated back to as late as 1923, when the erstwhile PWD department was demilitarized and a separate works department was created for the military engineers. It is one of the oldest and the largest government construction agency in the country. Annual budget for the military engineering service is close to about 25,000 crores.
Okay.
Military engineering service has a pan-India footfall. That means right from the highest peaks, Thais, Naoma, to the down south remote islands of Lakshadweep, Port
Andaman.
Blair, Andamans,
Yeah.
the military engineering service is present in creating strategic and operational infrastructure for the armed forces and also maintaining them. Military Engineering Service, sir, as you brought out in your introduction, not only provides infrastructure support to all three services, but also to all other organs of the Ministry of Defense.
Absolutely.
In addition to the Indian Coast Guard and any other agency which asks us to do this,
Yeah.
do this work.
Just for the information of the people, Indian Coast Guard is a force which is looking after the defense of our coast, which is working as the second layer, I would say. First layer is the Marine Police and then the Coast Guard, and thereafter it is the Indian Navy which looks after our huge coastline of about 7,000 plus kilometers, and they have to look after such a force which is actually deployed all along, right from the Kutch of Gujarat to the Bay of Bengal. Yeah, over to you.
So, Military Engineering Service has been constructing operational infrastructure for our defense forces, which includes all the airfields which are constructed,
Okay.
the advanced landing grounds, hardened air shelters, ATCs, maintenance hangars. As far as marine works are concerned, there are shore protection works, there are jetties, jetty extensions, harbor works. Also, we have our ammunition and fuel storage, underground communication and command centers. So, and this is only operational infrastructure.
Okay.
The Military Engineering Service also is providing habitat and married accommodation in addition to the essential services of water and electricity
Okay.
for the entire three services. So it is truly a very large mandate
Yeah, I mean,
with the MES.
yeah. So a question comes to my mind, a quick one, rapid fire one, is that since the mandate of MES is so large, it extends to even civil domain, right? So it would involve a lot of coordination with civilian construction agencies, civilian amenities agencies like the water supply and Jal Nigam, etc. So how's your challenge in that area? How do you meet those challenges of ensuring a plug-in of, let's say, water supply, or for that matter even outsourcing sometimes to the other agencies when you are actually tight for resources?
So as I brought out, MES is a very, very old organization, and our processes and procedures are very well set. I have 34 chief engineer zones
Okay.
spread all over the countryside. So
Right.
they are the absolutely on the ground, which carry out all the contracting and the tendering action for providing these services
Okay.
to the troops. As far as liaison and coordination with the civil agencies is concerned, it is at a very, very high level. In fact, since our troops are located in those respective states, the state governments are mandated to provide them these services.
Okay.
And the army's role and the army's ethos and the army's aura, and it is behind the MES outreach to these agencies,
Yeah.
and therefore we have never faced any issues as far as the state
Yeah.
governments are concerned.
Go to the next issue, and that is about something which most of the public knows about it, right? And that's our border infrastructure in terms of roads, right? And you have one of the major tasks of doing that. Of course, you got a DG Border Roads organization to do it. Could you just now, throw some light onto the role of the BRO and how they are coping with it, and some of their very important achievements which have come in the national news also?
So the Border Road Organization is the third important pillar of the Corps of Engineers. If we look at our go a little back, till about 1960, our border road infrastructure was almost non-existent.
Okay.
As the Chinese threat loomed over our head, the government decided that we need to do something about this border infrastructure.
Okay.
So in 1960, the Border Road Organization was raised. General Dubey was the first DGBR. The Border Road Development Board that time was headed by none other than the Honorable Prime Minister of India,
Oh.
Shri Jawaharlal Nehru.
Right.
So that is the kind of importance which was given to the Border Road Organization.
Right.
The World War II concept of the General Reserve Engineering Force was also revived,
Okay.
and the GREF was raised to support and carry out these tasks.
Correct.
At that point of time, the entire work was to be completed in 2 to 3 years' time, and border roads was supposed to be wound up after that.
That's why it works on project-based
Yes, sir.
tasks.
But the border road organization proved its mettle and its credentials so much that that organization has become indispensable in even in today's scenario.
Right.
Border road organization has the advantage of carrying out and executing projects from within its own departmental resources.
Right.
However, with the additional requirement of creating border infrastructure, now border road has also gone in for contracting out and going through the latest methods of EPC contract, the way the NHAI and other agencies are carrying out.
Okay.
Some of the recent projects which have been in the news. First was the Atal Tunnel,
Yeah.
which is providing us
That's right. That's
all
right.
weather connectivity to our important areas of Leh and Ladakh.
Yeah.
And second was toward the eastern side, which was Sela Tunnel,
Sela Tunnel.
which was also inaugurated a few days back.
Even the Bhalukpong route which is being developed.
Absolutely, sir. The DS DBO road,
Yeah.
which has been recently completed, the highest motorable road in Khardungla.
Let me just tell you that DSDBO road is also an eyesore for our some of the
Yes.
adversaries.
Yes.
They don't like the achievement which we have
Yes.
done there.
Border roads is also now, in addition to the roads, they have now gained expertise in constructing very complicated and complex bridge structures.
Okay.
Border roads is also constructing advanced landing grounds. In fact, the Neoma airfield is being constructed by the border roads as of now.
Yeah.
If you remember the Silkyara Tunnel, border roads was deeply involved in the rescue operations along with the combat engineers. Silkyara Tunnel was a civil project.
That's why I wanted to bring out
Yes,
this
it
point.
was a civil project. Border roads and the combat engineers were involved only during the rescue
Rescue
operation.
part of it, and this is what I wanted to focus and tell the audience that look, the border roads are actually masters of the borders. So therefore, when they conduct these kind of projects, I think they do it wonderfully well. They also employ the local people there, so they know the kind of employment which the local people get, that benefits the local economy also. Yeah.
So border roads, like I brought out, sir, the infrastructure being created by the border, as you rightly brought out, is entirely dual-use infrastructure.
That's right.
It is not only assisting the military to conduct operations effectively and efficiently, it is also providing economic opportunities to the local population.
Correct.
It is also assisting in promoting tourism,
That's
and
right.
probably it will bring back those population which has gone for
Yeah.
greener pastures. And
In fact, Rajnath Singh, while speaking in one of the seminars on border area development, he spoke about vibrant villages. And the concept of vibrant villages was, his underlying statement was, let's start a revolution to move forward rather than move backwards towards the cities and urban areas. And that can only happen if the lifeline, which is the border roads, if they create that, I think there'll be a forward movement to it.
absolutely, sir. In fact, the Honorable Prime Minister called them not as the last village but the first village.
First village. I mean, they are the frontiers of our. The Roman Empire used to focus on that. Roman Empire believed that if your frontiers are strong, then your interiors are automatically safe and secure. I think that's the concept which we have to follow. With that, anything else would you like to add about the border roads?
See, border roads is doing a human service to this country, and its role has only been increasing with the kind of capability it has demonstrated to this nation. The kind of infrastructure which the border roads is creating, I think, is world class.
Okay.
And in the most inhospitable terrain where nobody else is willing to work, Border
Right.
Roads is executing its projects.
Right. So the next question which I would like you to focus on is that the flavor today is of technology, innovation, Atmanirbharta. Because unless we are self-dependent, we really cannot see ourselves through in a conflict of a prolonged duration. If it is a short conflict, etc., we can, we do have the reserves, we can cater for it to be over within 15 to 20 days. That was what the thinking was. But the Russia-Ukraine war has proved all that wrong. Hamas war has proved all that wrong. Even small wars are going up to 1,000 days or 1 year, so on, so on, so forth. So, what are the initiatives that the engineers are taking in terms of technological innovations, incorporation of self-reliant technologies, Atmanirbharta to be very precise?
Gen Dushyant, it's a very pertinent question. Uh, there was a time when most of our equipment was ex-import. If we look at my bridging equipment,
Correct.
if I look at my minefield breaching equipment,
Yes.
every major equipment for with the Corps of Engineers was ex-import.
Right.
One of the reasons was that because of the limited numbers, the participation of the civil industry in R&D, in production, etc., was very, very limited.
Okay.
From that era to today's era, when 100% of my combat engineering equipment is indigenized,
Mm-hmm.
all my bridging equipment is now developed by the DRDO and
Okay.
produced by the local industry.
That's a wonderful news.
In fact, my mine breaching equipment, my new family of mines, like I said, 100% of my combat engineering equipment is indigenous today.
Okay.
So that is our contribution towards indigenization and towards Atmanirbharta. We no longer are dependent on any other country for
Okay.
doing this.
Okay.
As far as the technology and innovation is concerned, sir, the technology and innovation is very close to our heart.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the Bangalore torpedo, I'm sure the audience would have heard the term Bangalore torpedo.
I mean, this is just a question which I thought, let me ask you. Why do we call it Bangalore?
It is called Bangalore torpedo because it was developed in my MEGN center, Bangalore.
So that's the information for the public that sometimes we honor a particular innovation by the people who have created it or by the place where it was created. So that is why Bangalore torpedo, possibly the first indigenous system to come into the Indian
Created,
Armed Forces.
developed in First World War. It is still in use
Correct.
for breaching wire obstacles.
Yeah, so that's the interesting part of these podcasts. Most of you don't know about it. I think it will be a good information bank to our public. Okay.
As far as absorption of technology and innovation is concerned, we have a three-pronged strategy to it.
Mm-hmm.
Our alma mater, College of Military Engineering in Pune, they have in-house research and innovation center, which we call as the SCRI, Sarvatra Center for Research and Innovation.
Okay.
And large number of projects are being produced there, are being researched upon in collaboration with the academia and industry.
Okay.
Second is we are encouraging grassroots innovation. You would have heard about Major Raj Prasad. He's a sapper officer.
Yes.
Already 3 products he's patented and they are being introduced. They have already been introduced into the services,
Very
which
nice.
is called a Vidyut Rakshak, which is an IoT based device which can control all the generators which you have in your area of operations.
Correct.
It is a remote exploder, then you can remotely
Explode.
explode multiple detonations.
Okay.
And another exploder which is a UAV based, UGV based device to clear the IEDs or the improvised explosive devices.
Okay.
We are in constant touch. Our units are constantly innovating and fielding their innovations in the army competitions and winning laurels. Number of them have been already productionized and we are using them.
So before we go to the next question, I again wanted to ask you a very short question related to, we missed out one of the pillars, and that was military survey. Uh, could you just highlight in very briefly that exactly what is its role and how is it contributing towards our overall engineering tasks?
So military survey is the fourth pillar,
Yes,
uh, and a very very important pillar of the Corps of Engineers.
correct.
If we look at military survey, when the Britishers uh, started ruling this country,
Mm-hmm.
there were no maps available. It was the military engineers which started producing or carrying out survey and producing maps.
Okay.
Military survey that time became the mother of survey of India,
Mm-hmm.
and that is how the engineer officer used to be always surveyor general of India
Right.
till some time back.
Okay.
Uh, Recently, the military survey has been delinked from the survey of India,
Okay.
and charter and role of the military survey, which was erstwhile only across the border, has now been increased to include hinterland mapping also.
Oh, is it?
So that is the geospatial arm which the Corps has,
Mm-hmm.
and it provides all topographic and GIS data to the Corps to the entire army for their operational planning and execution.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the military survey has its units which is carrying out its task, and its training center is located as a faculty of geospatial science in the College of Military Engineering,
Okay.
where we are carrying out training of all arms and services on geospatial issues.
Okay, so a leading question from this particular pillar of yours is that initially we used to send our survey teams to remote areas to map the terrain, but now with technology having advanced, do you still carry out those forward area physical surveys, or you rely mostly on the technological images, etc., to update your maps?
So we started the survey using the plane table survey. That is a civil engineering term.
Yeah,
Plane table and the chain survey.
correct,
That is
correct,
how the survey used to be conducted.
correct.
From there, we have now graduated to the drone-based survey, and most importantly, the satellite imagery-based survey.
Okay.
So the entire mapping now is being carried out through analysis of the satellite images.
So we move on to the next big question, which I would like you to ask is that you are heading such a huge uh, manpower, huge role, huge task, right from borders to Kanyakumari. Everything is possibly under you. What's your vision for the future, especially during your tenure, and also for the engineering arm as a general thing, and what are the challenges which you are facing, which you are likely to face in executing your vision, and your subsequent successors are going to face those challenges. So, what are your views on this, and how are you ensuring that these challenges do not come in front of your vision of the arms engineer?
Gen Dushyant, that is again a very, very challenging question, I would say.
Yeah.
Uh, but if we look at the whole concept of fighting warfare is changing very rapidly.
Yeah.
Our own assumptions of a short, swift war has gone outside the window with this Russia-Ukraine war having been fought for last 3 years till now. So the engineers, which are the support arm for the army and are very critical for their operational and tactical successes, have to keep pace with the changes which the modern warfare is going to witness in the future. So
Correct.
my first challenge is related to how are we going to adapt and incorporate the changes which the modern warfare is throwing at us.
So,
And that is going to take place by absorbing new technology, by having new equipment, by skilling our people, and also by changing our organization's procedures and processes.
okay.
So that is my first challenge. And the second issue is related to meeting the aspirations of our troops as far as their infrastructure, as far as their habitat, as far as their merit accommodation is concerned. As we know, as the economic conditions have risen, our aspirations have also risen
Correct.
quite a bit.
Correct.
The MES and border roads are committed to providing uh, quality infrastructure in time to our troops. Our maintenance has to be of the topmost order, and for this again, uh, the primary focus will be on skilling and on our processes, which need to be strengthened further so that we can provide these services to our troops.
Okay, so we have covered a vast gamut of your role and charter of the engineers. So, everything is done with a ultimate purpose of making the nation great again, or like in the words of the Prime Minister, make India great again. So, which is essentially nation building, and we also have the aim of Viksit Bharat at 2047. So, with that long perspective in mind, how do you think the engineers are contributing towards that goal?
So the engineers have always been contributing towards nation building. To just give you a background, if we look at the entire or almost the entire irrigation network in the northern India is by the engineers.
Correct.
Uh, Number of large reservoirs in the southern India have been constructed by the engineers.
Okay.
Some of the iconic buildings like the Calcutta Town Hall, the Bombay Town Hall, the Calcutta Mint, the Bombay Mint,
Okay.
they've all been constructed by the Corps of Engineers.
Right.
If we go to Port Blair, the entire water supply to Port Blair is being supplied by Chauldhari Dam.
Right.
And on Chauldhari Dam, in big bold letters, is written as MES
Right.
because it was constructed by the engineers.
Correct.
So right from the beginning, engineers have always been part of nation building,
Right.
and we continue to do so. Our contributions, border roads, we have already talked about. Whatever infrastructure they are creating in the border roads is of dual use. Any
Correct.
road which is connecting or which is used for military operations or is required for military for its operation is also used for the people for their own commutation and also for the tourism.
That's right.
Similarly, MES is also creating infrastructure. For example, large number of my airfields constructed and maintained by MES are dual-use airfields, including Pune, including Port Blair. All these are being used by the civil agencies also.
Correct.
MES is also spending uh, money on the infrastructure is part of the circular economy
Correct.
because it supports a large number of industries, construction industry. So the contribution towards the nation building has always been there. Another issue which I talked about was the disaster relief and management. Whether you look at the Wayanad floods or the Sikkim floods, and I just mentioned the current tunnel mishap which is being handled by the Corps of Engineers. So we have always been the first responders in disaster relief and management.
Okay. I think you have really keyed in the nation building with the engineers.
But I would, sir, just want to mention another very important aspect of our nation building,
Yeah, go ahead.
which is the sports and adventure.
Yeah.
So sports, the engineers
And
have.
I think the previous ENC is the Indian Olympic
He is in the
Association
Indian Olympic Association.
member.
He is the executive member.
Yeah.
The sports and adventure have also always been very dear to our heart. If we look at, we have 5 Dronacharya awardees, we have 3 Dhyan Chand, and the largest number of Arjuna awardees on any organization.
Yeah, I have a colleague of mine, I was mentioning you, Major General Chaturvedi,
Yes,
who was a national rowing,
rowing.
national rower, and he represented India in the
Yes.
Asian. So you are definitely all over the place, I
In
suppose.
fact, even in adventure activities, we've always
Yeah.
been at the forefront.
Correct.
The first circumnavigation on a
Yes.
sailboat was on Trishna,
Correct.
was by the Corps of Engineers team.
Yeah.
In fact, we are now preparing.
Was
Uh,
Major AK Singh part of it?
no, Major A.K. Singh was part of
Part
it,
of it.
who had lost his leg
One leg.
in a para hang gliding
He's again
incident.
a very close friend of
Yes,
mine.
sir. So he was also part of it.
Yeah.
We are currently preparing a tri-services all-women sailing expedition, which will go to circumnavigate the globe.
Okay.
And this team is under training for last 2 years, and this expedition is going to be launched in the month of July or August this year.
Do you also have some role in the Arctic?
Sir, in Arctic, the initial two stations, both at the Dakshin Gangotri and
Yeah.
Maitri, were constructed by the Corps of Engineers.
See?
The first visit or the first ship which landed from India had a sizable proportion of the Corps of Engineers team.
Good. I think so. With all this, I think you're also having a global footprint across the globe. So with that, let me ask you your final thought for your engineers in general and for this podcast.
So all the viewers and the listeners who are watching and listening this program, sir, I could only want to say that the Corps of Engineers represents the strength and ingenuity of the Indian Army, and we remain dedicated to working tirelessly to secure our nation's future with innovation and with resilience and with the shared sense of purpose. We are sure that we will build a very strong and very self-reliant India, sir.
Thank you, General Walia. I think that was a wonderful discussion which we had. We once again tell would like to tell our viewers that please keep our channel alive by subscribing to it, liking it, sharing it, press the bell icon, and make it viral so that people do get to know what the Indian armed forces are doing. We will continue to get you guests from the Indian Army who are at the apex level of their organizations to share their views. And let me tell you, I mean, there are so many things which come out in the environment, pluses and minuses. Those should be taken with a pinch of salt. People in the Indian Army are working tirelessly towards making India once again great. Thank you very much, and Jai Hind, and thank you to you, Janwalia.
Thank you, General Dushyant.